This is the show Brilliant Minds, Brilliant Moves. And here we have the lovely Fiona Antoni and myself, KDlearns, if you don't know us. Fiona is a phenomenal chess commentator, chess interviewer, woman international master, and also a member of the Luxembourg Olympiad team. So just a million different accomplishments and skills here. And myself, you have a person that joined the chess world after watching the Queen's Gambit. So not as accomplished in the chess scene, but I've absolutely fell in love with the game. Just an absolute, universal language where no matter what language you speak, you can still understand the chess moves if they're explained correctly. And that's kind of what me and Fiona are going to try and do for you today. We're going to try to break down some of the pros' best chess moves during the Chessable Masters.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the kind introduction and also for the invitation. For what I believe is the first show of its kind. Hopefully, the first of many more to come. I really like the idea. I hope this is going to be fun for our viewers. I hope it's going to be interactive. I hope they can learn something and have some fun. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
We are going to be talking about the Champions Chess Tour, which has a prize pool of $2 million for the players. And specifically on April 7th, the Chessable Masters event of the tour just finished, and that event itself had a prize pool of $235,000. So a lot at stake, and under this immense pressure, some of these chess players, these pros, came up with some unbelievable moves. And if you're wondering who the professional players are, the field was incredibly strong. Like, you have 3 divisions of players, Division 1 being the best, 2 and 3. Division 1 consisted of 8 players, including the likes of Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Fabiano Caruana, and obviously more. Division 2 had 16 players, but just because it's not Division 1, don't think that people are weaker chess players. You have multiple world chess champions, which will be featured later in the show, that were in Division 2. And then Division 3 had 32 players, including a former world championship contender, Gata Kamsky, and many, many top-level grandmasters. But first, before we get to the brilliant moves, we want to show you 3 of the biggest headlines that we took away from the event. And on day 1, we got one of the most shocking headlines, which was Magnus Carlsen losing in the first round to Vladislav Artemiev. And if you're a baseball fan and you love a good walk-off home run, then you are going to enjoy Artemiev's walk-off pre-moved checkmate. Here's the clip, and one moment as we transition over.
Always available for
White.
So,
right.
But 10 seconds!
Yeah, Artemiev, what is he doing?
He's not pre-moving. He spent so much time.
There's no increment.
Oh, wow. There could be some checkmate threats around here.
Oh, the pawn's gone.
Oh my gosh, he's not going to win.
He needs to win in 9 seconds.
No, he's not going to.
He's not got any time. Now there's going to be checkmates
Rook
against the
F4.
White King as
Did
well.
he find
Rook
it?
H4! Rook H4 is game over!
checkmating
Oh
who?
my god!
Wow.
Where's the mate?
Black
Queen
King
Queen
moves.
D8?
Queen D2?
Queen D8!
It's gonna be
Rook
checkmate,
F6
F6.
only move!
The Queen D5 is mate. Oh, he has a mate there. Queen
5
D5.
seconds on the clock!
It's going to be checkmate now.
Oh my god!
He's got it.
Yeah,
he has it.
He got it.
And that
he has
is
enough
it.
time. GG.
Oh, he's walked away. Did you
Yeah.
pre-move? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know,
Look at him walk away.
Normally bees sting once and they die, but Vladislav Artemiev will not die. He takes down the world champion.
Wow.
That was sick.
That's how the first day of the Chessable Masters went. And Fiona, like, as someone that has competed in all these different chess events your whole life, like, how would you describe, like, the time pressure, like, the need to checkmate? Like, what are your thoughts on that whole, unfolding of events there?
Well, I think it's really interesting, right? Because taking down Magnus in a 4-game match is really, really tough. And Artemiev, he's shown time and time again what a fantastic player he is. But it's funny, I hadn't actually seen the clip. I usually follow those events more closely than I did this time. We will come to talk about why I didn't follow it as closely. I was actually busy working in another event, which was kind of clashing with the Chessable Masters. So I hadn't actually seen that clip, but I thought it's very funny also the way he's getting up in the end. And it's always nice to sort of get to pre-move something like that. But especially sweet if it's against Magnus Carlsen. And knocking him out not knocking him out, but knocking him into the elimination bracket at the same time is pretty nice.
Yes, and that you bring up a great point because the event was double elimination. I see some questions about saying, oh, was Magnus eliminated so early? No, he was actually eliminated from the winner's bracket, but since it was double elimination, you basically play twice as many rounds in the loser's bracket to eventually climb back to the grand finals. So that was Magnus's mission after just the day one of the event. But
yeah, and what a start. I mean, you really don't expect Magnus going into the losers bracket from day one.
Correct. Yeah. Like I said, it's like the absolute biggest shock that Artemiev delivered to the chess world there.
Not the first time, probably not the last.
Correct. And I think Magnus referenced that in the interview afterwards, that it wasn't the first time that Artemiev had bested him before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's Artemiev. I think there might be some people watching us who are not very familiar with him, but he's been a beast over the board, but especially also online for a few years now, and he can take down the absolute best in any format, and still quite young, so I'm sure you'll be hearing plenty more from him in the years to come.
That will be exciting. And you mentioned that you hadn't seen that clip because you were at another event. Well, that brings us to headline number 2 that we want to share. In Division 2, we had Nodirbek Abdusattorov playing against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, otherwise known as MVL, for the finals of Division 2. And Nodirbek is a 2021 world champion, and he was board 1 for the Uzbek team that won gold at the 2022 Chess Olympiad. And Maxime Vachier-Lagrave was the 2021 world blitz champion. So basically 2 world champions going head-to-head here. But you have a little bit of insight into what was also going through Nodirbek's mind during this time. Would you like to share your experience there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working at the same time that the Chessable Masters was going on. I was working at an over-the-board blitz event in Berlin called the Armageddon series, which consists, well, of a few events as it is a series. This was the Asia tournament. And there, if I'm not mistaken, there were 4 of our 8 players that were also playing in the Chessable Masters, one of them being Nodirbek Abdusattorov, but also Yu Yangyi, also Vladimir Kramnik, also Daniil Dubov. Mm-hmm. So all of these guys had really, really busy days. And in fact, our tournament, the Armageddon series, they had to move the rounds forward, backward. They had to move them to 1 hour later in the evening. So the games in Berlin actually started at 8 p.m. At night, giving them the time to first play in the Chessable Masters and then come to the venue and play some more. So that was quite funny.
That sounds like so many chess games played at a high level all in one day.
It really does. And it was funny that some of them didn't Kramnik play against, like, I feel that some of them, I don't want to say, and I don't want to make a mistake, but I feel that some of them played each other in both in the Chessable Masters and in Berlin, which was really funny.
Yeah, so then you get to see the difference between playing each other online versus over the board.
No.
Is there a difference? Who knows? Sometimes.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it was quite the shift for these guys, but Nodirbek, I mean, he won Division 2, right? And he also, well, he didn't win the tournament in Berlin, but he finished second to Gukesh, so he also qualified to the grand finals of that event. So it was certainly a good week at the office for Nodirbek.
Very, very well done by the young Uzbek chess player there. Moving on, we have our third and final headline that we want to share with you all, and that is GM Hikaru. Hikaru Nakamura goes to the finals of the winners bracket. He loses. He takes his first loss against Fabiano Caruana, and then he goes down to the losers bracket. So just as Magnus is trying to work through all these different matches from losing in round 1 to try and get back to the grand finals, now it is Magnus versus Hikaru. And there is, Hikaru, obviously an amazing player, so is Magnus. And when you get them together, Hikaru had a little stroke of luck combined with his phenomenal play, and that is what helped him. So let's check out what little bit of luck Hikaru needed to kind of get back to the grand finals. So here, enjoy this clip right here.
Oh my God.
Oh, Queen C2 checks. So you have a counter check if black checks in the second rank. So he's checking in diagonals. Wow, King B1.
Gotta move.
Oh, no more checks.
Oh, and what's happened there?
What happened?
We see a reaction. Magnus'
Oh!
Oh no!
Oh my God. Did he pre-move?
He mouse slipped.
Oh, and Hikaru there celebrating. Magnus mouse slipped, blundering into that queen. What an end!
So there you have it. Of course, obviously not to take anything away from either Hikaru or Magnus, but when there is a queen blundered away with a mouse slip, it does help one player much more than the other. Fiona, have you seen that clip before?
I had seen that clip before. One of my favorite parts about this clip is the commentator's reaction, like especially Kendiger, like, what? Do you guys see this? Do you guys see this? No, of course, it's very unfortunate the way Magnus lost that game. I mean, all the top players have been both on the receiving end and on the other end. So just an unfortunate loss for Magnus, and for Hikaru, the little stroke of good fortune that helped him on the way to winning the whole thing.
You could say that Hikaru had it all planned out. He lost to Fabi just so that he get more content beating Magnus and then beating Fabi in the grand finals. That was the strategy all along.
It worked out brilliantly as well.
Right. I think we are ready to kind of transition over to going through all these brilliant moves played by the best of the best here, right?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Division 2 finals, Nodirbek Abdusattorov versus MVL. And in this position, Nodirbek played the move Bishop B1. And this is pretty crazy because you're thinking, okay, what piece, brilliant moves come with sacrifices. It's not just about, playing the best move, but it's typically sacrificing material and playing the best move. So in this position, this knight is all lonely, and you can, black could technically take the knight. But the issue with this is that after the queen is traded off, if you actually do trade those queens, then simply rook e8, and the light squares are super duper weak, and this is just mate. There's not just one brilliant move, there are two. We just explained why black cannot take the free knight on f3, because at minimum they lose the queen if not getting checkmated. So instead, black goes for his idea to go and try to protect this this e8 square, I guess. But that allows h3. Yet again, another brilliant move with pretty much the same idea, because I think if you take you still can't take that. It's the same exact threat. Black didn't actually solve anything. So that's why both Bishop B1 and H3 are both brilliancies. So 2 for 1, and with the same idea, Black has not solved their issues. So Nodirbek is continuing forward. But chat is also asking one more question after H3. Instead of the bishop taking the knight, what if the queen simply takes on H3, because that is now a completely free pawn? But remember that basically the doubled rooks on the e pawn on the e file are super strong. So yeah, we're not gonna win the queen, but white can still win the bishop. If you take that, it's mate all over again after rook takes and rook takes again. So even though the queen won't be lost, now the bishop will be lost. So that's why queen takes h3 is not an available resource for black.
And it once again just shows why Bishop B1 was such a powerful move by Nodirbek. I mean, he saw those black background issues, and black just couldn't find a proper way to solve them. So Bishop B1, really such a brilliant move. And I think for all the people watching, if you go back to the position before bishop b1 was played, in general, you want to ask yourself, you want to look at all your pieces and ask yourself which piece isn't taking part in the game. And I think in that case, you would immediately notice that bishop on a2, which isn't doing anything. Of course, there's more to playing bishop b1 than just seeing that the bishop isn't doing much. But maybe, if you start by thinking about which piece do I want to improve, and then if you spot the back rank issues, then through all those, that thought process, you might get to the brilliant move that Nodirbek played in the game.
And I think it's hard for beginners and intermediate players, like I consider myself an intermediate player, like it's hard to realize that there's back rank issues, because typically when h6 or h3 are played, like that creates a loop for the king. So to see like the bishop sniping the last exit square from far away, that's like it's really combining like the next level of board vision there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think out of all the brilliant moves you sent me, this was one of my favorites, because it's such a, it looks like the knight is hanging. It's not only hanging, but it creates a skewer on the rook and the knight. And bishop b1 is just such a cool move, just bringing this last piece into the game. And yeah, black is basically just dead lost after.
Yeah, and don't spoil your favorite, because at the end I'm gonna ask you and chat and myself what your favorite brilliant move was.
It was one of my favorites.
Right. Okay. Well, there we have it. That's how part of how Nodirbek took home the first place in Division 2. And I think we're good to move on to one other game that we wanted to share. As you mentioned earlier, that some people were playing both the Armageddon series and the Chessable Masters at the same time, and both of these players were in that category. But not only were they in that category, this is like a lesson on how to take down a former world champion. Vladimir Kramnik was the world champion, I believe, from 2000 to 2006, if that sounds correct. I hope that is. But he was definitely a world champion, and this is Yu Yang Yi coming up with a nice idea here. And that idea is rook takes b7. Like fireworks, right? It's incredible. For chat, if you or for YouTube, whoever is watching this, if the queen takes, can anyone spot the issue with this, accepting the sacrifice? Let's see if at least one person in chat should see this. I would hope in this, when this position gets to the board, I hope people will be able to find it. Okay, perfect.
Queen g7 is now indeed mate in one. Why is it mate in one now and it wasn't a mate before? Because earlier our queen on d4 was actually pinned to our king on f2, so the queen couldn't move away from that diagonal, and rook takes b7 is such a nice deflection. Such a nice deflection move found here by Yu Yang Yi.
Yes, and it's one of those beautiful things where you want something in chess, but you have to work backwards, and that's how rook b7 is born as an idea. But ultimately, of course, Vladimir Kramnik, world champion, former world champion, he's not going to go down that easily. So he sees that whole threat, and instead of taking the rook, he simply trades the queens off. But the issue is that white is now up a pawn. Several moves later, white scoops up another pawn.
Not just a pawn, like he's also up a piece, right?
True.
He's actually down a few pawns. Down a few pawns, but up a piece.
Good catch. Good catch. Wait,
yeah, no, I think, it was still not an easy win for white, because black has all these, well, black has 2 pawns for the piece, but I think Yu Yang Yi really demonstrated great technique here to bring home the full point. I saw there was an interesting question in the chat from Hustarico. How do we find brilliant moves in our games at KDlearns? I don't know if you have any thoughts, Kevin, on this.
I think that It kind of goes back to just the age-old, like, everyone says this, like, when you solve puzzles, you look at checks, captures, and attacks. But then the key to bringing that to your actual chess game is that you, like, some of it's, like, looking for those moments, but if it's like, oh, I have this plan, this is kind of what I was saying earlier, like, I have this plan, but I can't do it, so how do I work backwards to make it possible? And then looking at forcing moves or looking at forcing threats, like obviously the queen is hit after after rook takes b7, like the queen has to move or do something. So like that's a forcing threat, right? So I think it's using the checks, captures, attacks thought process and just having a little bit of creativity and pushing your mind to actually assess all your possibilities, because our brains are lazy, mine especially, and you have to push your limits as much as possible.
I also think you made a great point earlier about, solving. I think one of the ways to finding brilliancies in your own games is just solving as many tactics and as many puzzles as you can, and maybe especially by theme, make sure that, here we're looking at a deflection. There's so many different tactics. So the more puzzles you solve, the more familiar you will become with the different patterns, and the more likely you will be to find some brilliancies in your own games.
I love that. And I recently looked at how many puzzles I had done on chess.com, and it was like over 5,000 rated puzzles in 2 years, and that was not even counting the puzzle rushes that I've done, which I've done like 550 puzzle rushes. So, yeah, I was like, wow, I've done quite a bit here. Like, don't know if that's to be proud or like, whoa, this is a lot.
I think that sounds like a lot to me. So people should take, a leaf out of your book and get solving.
Right. But yeah, I mean, this is part of how Yu Yangyi took down a former world champion, and yeah, this is how Vladimir Kramnik exited the Division 2 bracket.
Yeah, crazy match here that we saw on Rook B7. Really, I think a big part of a big move, a move that played a big role in Yu Yangyi taking this match.
Right, and next up, I think we have a game from the first match of Fabiano Caruana versus Hikaru Nakamura. So just as a reminder, Hikaru played Fabi in the finals of the winners bracket, but since neither of them had lost, the loser would go down to the losers bracket and then try and make their way back to the grand finals. So this is in the first matchup, and there was this idea. And Fiona, I think I may need to really lean on your chess expertise in this moment. Fabiano was playing with the black pieces and seemed to have the advantage. Supposedly the only like convincingly winning move is rook g6. I didn't fully understand it, but Fabiano did err with knight to d6. So
yes. So basically, I mean, in the starting position that we were looking at, black is up 2 pawns, but things are not that easy because white has some activity. White potentially has some threats, and also the black pawns are kind of weak, especially the 2 double isolated H pawns. And the move that Fabi played here, knight d6, was basically just a big tactical blunder. Because what Fabi missed, and the move that Hikaru played now, is rook takes f8. And the problem is, why is that such a big problem? Well, because if you play the logical move of recapturing the rook here, then the rook on a6 is simply hanging. And now white suddenly emerges up a piece. So in the game, Fabi decided that after rook takes f8, his best bet, and this is backed by the computers, the move he played was the best move on the board, rook c6, to now attack the knight. So basically, yeah, as you're pointing out, he's attacking both pieces now, and white cannot play rook c8 to defend the knight, because that square is under control of the black knight, but Hikaru played the very nice rook d8. And rook d8, the problem is that if black captures our knight now on c7, then we will capture the black knight and once again emerge up a piece. So the tactics continued from that moment out. After rook d8, Fabiano once again played the best move here, knight c4. But after Hikaru's move, knight e8, basically he keeps the extra piece. In the end, the game was a draw because although white was up a piece, there was too much counterplay here for black, especially with these advanced pawns, and there was a bit of back and forth. Maybe a draw, a fair result in the end. Fabi should actually have still won this rook ending, but rook endings are really, really tough. This is one of the big takeaways for me working these top elite levels. You know, I've been trying to work on my rook endings for a long time. And I always think they're so hard. But then I look at the top guys, and of course, they play them a million times better than me, but it's impossible to play them perfectly. So yeah, Fabi couldn't convert this position here with his two extra pawns.
Correct, yeah. The E and H pawns are both additional pawns. And yeah, I think it just shows, well, two things. One, that rook endgames are incredibly complex and difficult, even for the best players in the world. But also Hikaru's resources, right? I think he's made a name in being quite the resourceful chess player, and throughout his career, and that has not changed.
Absolutely. I mean, Hikaru mentioned, I don't want to quote him, but he did an interview where he had to rate his skills, you know, tactics, defense, this, that, and he rated himself highest in defense. And yeah, the resourcefulness he shows time and time again is just mind-boggling, really.
Yeah, and here he is already showing, even though he lost this match against Fabiano in the first matchup, he was still showing his fighting spirit.
For sure.
And because of that loss, we are going to move on to one of his games in the losers bracket versus Magnus Carlsen. So naturally, we have to take a look at what happens in this position where Magnus is with the white pieces, perhaps trying to trade queens, but we get actually a double brilliant move, one played by Hikaru and one played by Magnus. So this is really, truly just the clash of two titans here with knight to d4. And seemingly the purpose of knight d4, you are sacrificing your knight, but the whole idea is that you're disconnecting the queen and the rook. So now, for example, I mean, if you just take back one way or another, then you're simply hanging your queen, and that black is completely winning. So for that reason, white has to take with the rook.
And also, just to interrupt you for 1 second, a very nice point of knight d4 is that if white says, okay, I'm just gonna swap queens and take on e7, then there's a big oopsie here for white. So let's maybe pass this one on to the chat as well. Sure. Because I think it's a very cute one.
Yeah, that is a great point.
Because sometimes it looks like knight d4, very nice move, disconnecting our pieces. So let's just trade queens. But yeah, chat has already spotted the problem here is indeed mate in one after knight c2, and the two knights working very well together here.
Don't need a queen when you have a beautiful smothered mate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sorry, you were saying so knight rook takes d4 indeed.
Yes.
The only.
Yeah, and rook takes d4 also gets the coveted double exclamation points with the bright blue background. And I believe that, yes, like Hikaru just took. And when everything shakes out, now the queens can get traded because there's no second knight to deliver that checkmate. And when everything shakes out, black has a rook and a pawn for the two pieces. So even though there's an imbalance, I believe that the two players played on to a draw for this position.
Absolutely, and what a very nice moment this was between two of the absolute best players out there. This knight d4 and rook takes. With both players trading brilliancies here.
Mm-hmm. And all right, it kind of brings us to the last brilliancy that we are looking to share with everybody. Just to set the stage, like he actually didn't have to beat Fabi once in a match. He had to beat him in 2 consecutive matches because it was still double elimination. And can't remember. I think this was in the first match. In this moment, Fabiano sacrifices his queen. Fabi with the black pieces, queen to a3. If you are to take that, which Hikaru doesn't, but if you do take that queen, then this knight is guarded by the bishop, and simply, knight d3, revealing a discovered check, and you can no longer go back to b2 because the knight has also covered that square. You have a discovered check. You are forced to move forward, and you run into rook b4, and basically all the pieces are coming to checkmate. You just keep walking. Actually, you have to go back.
Both moves lead to mate in 2. If the king goes forward, that's slightly easier. And if the king goes back here, well, now after this check, once again there's nothing. There's just nothing that white can do here. If maybe we show this one, I think the tougher one to find is after knight. So if the king goes back, and rook b4, and then if the king goes back to a3, well, there's a couple of ways to do it. I think we're looking rook a8 does also work, but the fastest is to capture on d4, once again with the discovery check, and after the only move b4, it leads to mate after bishop takes.
Wow.
And,
because b4 allows the light square bishop to participate as well.
It's a really nice checkmate. This is the fastest one, but if you go back to that moment, if instead of taking on d4 right here, so after king a3, rook a8 also leads to a nice checkmate. It takes one move longer, but after king a3 here, rook a8 check. And if knight a4 here to block the check, then rook b takes a4 is mate.
Wow.
Or rook takes b3 is also mate, and we always see the power of the discovery check in combination with it being a double check. So I think both of these, rook takes a4 and rook takes b3, are very nice checkmates.
And just for people that may have not been able to follow along all these different pins and discoveries, because of the discovered check, that is why this pawn cannot capture, because the king has to move, but there's nowhere to move because it is in check. And checkmate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A very nice mate.
Yeah, I mean, quite an insane brilliancy there to sacrifice the queen, but use every single piece remaining to deliver mate.
Yeah, I think this is also, what a find. I think this is the move that if I could have played it over the board, you enjoy it so much when you play queen a3, and you sort of, that your opponent, they don't want to allow these beautiful checkmates, so they kind of have to go back. So there's a real satisfaction to playing a move like queen a3 check. I think getting to play a queen sacrifice is always very special.
We were so enticed by that actual combination of the checkmate that I forgot that in the actual game, Hikaru did not take the queen.
I know, but the thing is, taking the queen would lead to first checkmate, but not taking the queen, which you can maybe show, is just dead lost anyway.
Correct. So in this position, I believe that Fabi took the rook, and Hikaru just immediately resigned because there wasn't much else to do. I mean, he's down in exchange here, and the attack is going to continue. Well, not an exchange. What am I saying? He's down
It is an exchange, yeah. After he recaptures on D1.
Yes, which you can't capture with the queen, because then wait. Oh, okay, well, whichever way you capture, it's not good, actually.
Basically, what is the saying? In a bad position, there's no good moves.
It's true.
So yeah, down in exchange, the attack continues, and yeah, this is just completely busted. One of Black's main ideas is that the rook comes to A8 to continue the pressure along the A file, and then the rook on D8 is so well placed because it pins that dark squared bishop, so there's just too many crushing ideas here for Black, and White is helpless.
And there's one other idea, which I'm a fan of. If you don't know about the giant fork... Wait, Fiona, do you know about the giant fork?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So, there's a little bit of a puzzle rush moment here. Like, there's a free piece for Black to take because of the giant fork. And that is, after rook takes d4, the queen cannot capture back because this is a giant fork.
I love that. I'll never forget the giant fork.
Yeah, and this is I'm a visual learner, so I have the forks, I have the skewers. We gotta make sure we're ready. It's last I checked, it's not considered cheating based on chess.com rules, but if it ever is, I'll put them away.
That's hilarious. I love that.
All right. So, long story short, those are all the brilliant moves that we had to share with everyone. But now is the time for chat, Fiona, myself, to pick what our favorite brilliant move was. So, just a very, very quick review of them. Nodirbek versus MVL in Division 2. Bishop B1. With this idea to use the doubled rooks to create back rank weaknesses, even a double brilliancy with h3, same idea. And after that, we talked about how Yu Yangyi sacrificed his rook to try and enable his queen to no longer be pinned and deliver checkmate. And of course, Kramnik defended a little bit more resourcefully, but Yu Yangyi still was able to eliminate the former world chess champion from Division 2 in this way. And then we had Hikaru showing off his absolute resources of defending from a slightly worse position one move ago. One little crack in the door, and Hikaru finds the way to get back to the draw. Magnus and Hikaru trading double brilliancies. Like, this is just poetic, right? And so that's another amazing one right there. And last but not least, you have Fabiano Caruana's Queen Sacrifice. So those are all the ones. Just let us know in chat what you think is your favorite. And meanwhile, Fiona, do you have a favorite in mind out of all the ones that we showed?
For me, I would have to say it has to be either this one that's on the board right now, Queen A3, or Nodirbek's Bishop B1. I think those are my top two. What about you?
I think I would. I think my top two are Magnus and Hikaru trading the double brilliancies, but I think the clear number one is actually Nodirbek's Bishop B1 because it is a beautiful loaded move with amazing board vision and ideas there.
Yeah, it's like Nodirbek's Bishop B1 is the polar opposite of this Queen A3 here. Like, this Queen A3 is beautiful, but it's so flashy, it's so in your face. And Bishop B1 is the complete, I mean, both are brilliant, but Bishop B1 is so quiet, it's such a little move that you don't really see coming. So yeah, they're very, very subtle, exactly, Jail Dog. Okay, so the poll is up. I have a feeling that one of these three is going to take it. The Queen A3 check, the Bishop B1. Oh, the Magnus Hikaru got omitted.
Oh no!
Sorry, Magnus Hikaru.
Can't even attempt to win.
Oh, a tie just on the finish line.
Okay, well, I guess Fabi and Nodirbek may have to share the first ever brilliant move of the Chessable Masters.
Absolutely. I think they're both deserving because they are, so they are both brilliant, but in such opposite names. So I think that's a fair result.
Right. It's a stylistic taste. It's not
Exactly.
so subjective. It's not so objective.
Absolutely.
Well, that kind of wraps it up for the show. Round of applause. Claps in the chat for everyone. To Fiona for being a lovely co-host, and also to all of the amazing pro chess players that we featured in today's event, especially Fabiano Caruana and Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who share the first ever brilliancy of the week on Brilliant Minds, Brilliant Moves.
Thank you so much for your kind words again, Kevin, and for having me. It was a pleasure being here once again. Really sorry about the tech issues. I hope I get to join again from home, and we'll make up for that. And yeah, a big shout out to everyone who was here watching this show with us. And other than that, I think you've said it all. So thank you so much for having me. It was really a fun show.